Good morning and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt. Today is Thursday, October the 15th of 2020, and welcome aboard. Today we are talking about a blog post that I did on basically more on the left and right, the concepts of left and right where political considerations are concerned. And I wanted to kind of sit and just discuss that with you this morning. I hope you're having a good morning. Hope everything's going well for you. My morning has not been the greatest, but that's just life. That's how it works. Okay, so I'm going to dive right in. The basic concept is that there are ideas in politics that are sort of more generic in nature, and they're on discussions like left and right, and they also are on discussions like liberal and conservative. And the thing about these ideas is that you're going to find that when you talk about political individuals, so for example, if you talk about I'm trying to think of names here of individuals that I cited in my article. But if you talk about people like Ted Cruz, if you talk about people like Tom Cotton, the president, right? So Donald Trump. If you talk about these guys, you tend to look at them as right-leaning, but the truth of the matter is that's not necessarily a valid thing. On the left, you might say the same thing. You might talk about people like Dick Durbin. You might talk about people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You might talk about Chuck Schumer, right, or Maxine Waters. The thing is, if you compare those on the right to those on the left, you will find that you're really looking at something that's more of a spectrum of ideas as opposed to somebody who's, completely to one side or the other of the aisle. So say, for example, if you take a look at somebody like Tom Cotton, you're going to see somebody who's farther right. If you take a look at somebody like Ted Cruz, they're not going to be quite as far right. And if you compare them to somebody like Chuck Schumer, you're going to find that they have ideas where they actually agree. Not necessarily a ton of them. They're still far separated. But the point is, if you took Ted Cruz and you compared him, for example, to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you would find that he's much farther in terms of his ideology from how he might compare to Chuck Schumer, right? So again, Ted Cruz compared to Chuck Schumer is probably a lot closer ideologically than Ted Cruz would be to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And this becomes even more of an interesting thing when you start to look at people who are not parts of the political class, because so I mentioned that among the black community in the United States, there's a subgroup who are very much right-leaning in terms of their social attitudes and perspective, and yet in other perspectives you will find that they're not that way at all, that they don't work that way at all. So many of them are quote pro-life, right? They don't support the idea of abortion. On the other hand, they might support the idea of lots of social programs, and that would be a very sort of left-leaning way to look at life on that side. So on the one side, they're what you would look at and you would say, well, this person is relatively conservative. But on the other side, you'd look at what they're talking about and you would say, gosh, that's really pretty much a liberal attitude. And I want to point something out, and I pointed this out before. Liberal, if you go to other places. I have friends who are from Australia, who are in Australia, and one of my friends is part of, I think it's the county or country Liberal Party. And that individual is what most people in the United States would term a conservative in many, many regards. Okay? The fact that in his home country, in his home territory, that individual is considered a liberal is not indicative of what you would find that person to be considered if he were in the United States. And that's true also for how people view liberalism in the United States. I know of a commentator sort who, a talking head, if you will, who considers himself a liberal, yet if you listen to a lot of his ideas, if you listen to a lot of what he's saying, you go, this guy doesn't look like what I expect or believe to be liberal. In fact, he's rather right-leaning in a lot of what he says. He's a pro Second Amendment guy. He believes that people ought to go to work, right, and instead of social programs and so forth. And it's not that he doesn't believe social programs ought to exist, right? The point of all of this, though, when it all comes down, the point of all of this is this idea that you can say, oh, these people are going to be left-leaning and those people are going to be right-leaning. That's not really something that you can say. Let's say that one of the people that I talked about earlier among the black community happens to believe that the issue of abortion is a really significant idea when it comes to how they're going to vote in some election. Okay, let's say that they decide that. Well, the problem is they're going to maybe, first of all, even if they happen to be moderately liberal or left-leaning or whatever you want to say in their view of life, that person is probably going to have to vote for a conservative in most instances if they want somebody who's going to support a pro-life cause. And here's the problem. If they decide that they're going to vote for a conservative, now they've got to look at who the conservatives are, and if they try and identify somebody who matches their ideals well, their ideals and their ideas well, what they're going to find is that person is probably not going to be electable on the conservative side of things. They're going to find that person is probably not going to make it through primaries or whatever they have to go through to get to a place where people are likely to actually elect that individual to office. They're never going to make it to the main election in all likelihood. In fact, what they're probably going to find is even if they vote for that person in primaries, actually they're not going to make it in, and therefore they're either going to have to vote for somebody that they like a lot less on a lot of other issues, or they're not going to get the cornerstone issue for them, which would be pro-life, a person who's taking pro-life choices, who's reliably going to do that. And so the point of all of this, when it all comes down, is, look, you may not think that this is important, but you need to have your ducks lined up, basically. You need to say, these are the things that are really important in my mind. Because if you don't, what you're going to have happen is you're going to vote for somebody who, in many things that you actually believe and support, you are totally unable to support. And when you find that you voted for that person, and particularly if you vote for that person because he's got a big R or a big D after his or her name, he or she does, right? After his or her name, then what you're going to find is that they're going to support things, and some of those things they're going to be interested in supporting, they're going to be basically untenable in your little world. It's important for you to decide what issues matter to you. And really, it's not just important for you to decide what issues matter to you, but what priority a given issue or set of issues holds in your life. If a person supports an individual who seems to be generally how they are, say liberal, for example, but that person is pro-life, and pro-life is the most important thing to them, you can bet in most instances somebody who claims to be a liberal will not support a pro-life stance. It's almost always the case. That's almost always the case. So I'm going to say this again. Not just know what you think in terms of issues. Don't just know what candidates support in terms of what they support, but prioritize what's going to be important enough for you to be a deal breaker so that you don't vote for people that you shouldn't. And I don't care if you're voting for dog catcher. I don't care if you're voting for town council. I don't care who you're voting for, what level of person you're voting for. President, congressman on a national level, state congressperson, like I say, alderman, dog catcher, you name it. If they're not going to support things that you support and they're actually going to be active in making decisions on those things, that may mean that you'll potentially put somebody in office who's going to work at cross purposes with what you desire, with what you want. Okay, so I'm about out of time. I'm going to wish you a good day. Tomorrow will be the 16th of October 2020. And I should be around again tomorrow to give another little another daily summation, and hopefully we'll see you then. We're starting to begin to see a little bit of fall weather, and that's good and bad all at the same time. Today here we're doing a little bit of the rainy thing, though I think it may have calmed down a little bit outside. In any case, yet again, I hope you have an excellent day. I hope you have a good Friday. I hope your weekend is a good one. I should see you before then, but even so, and you have an excellent day. Thanks for watching this video. Remember that you can like the video on YouTube, and you can give me a rumble on Rumble if you want to do that. Of course, you can also subscribe to my channel on both YouTube and Rumble. The channel would be Kurt's Religion and Politics. If you want to see more of my content, you can go to various places. The first of those places would be my blog. That's blogs.kpschubert.com, blogs.kpschubert.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, Parler or Minds.com, you can look for my handle. I am at kpschubert. That is at kpschubert. You can also see my Facebook page. That also is Kurt's Religion and Politics. I have obviously a YouTube and a Rumble account. My page, my channels on those accounts, pages, channels, whatever you want to call them, is Kurt's Religion and Politics. I have also, if you want to support me, a Patreon account. I am Kurt's Religion and Politics there. Thank you for looking at my stuff. Remember, you can subscribe. Remember, you can click notifications on the YouTube to make sure you're notified for new content. Again, thanks for coming to visit my channel. Thanks for watching this video, and you have a great day.